Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So this is going to be my my redo over the original Redux video that I did. So in the first video, I kind of talked about their site when it first went up. It was literally like 2 days after their site was first put up and where you could buy gaming PCs from them. Now, I knew when I made that initial review that some things were subject to change, and I knew that I was going to make another video on them if they did change. And again, that's the whole reason why I am making this video in the first place. They did change, literally the only reason why I didn't recommend them as much as other companies. Now, I don't even know that they watched that video because, I mean, if they did, that would have been crazy. But my biggest gripe with their company was that they were charging a lot of money for the Windows 10 key, and it basically just kind of took away the value of the system. And surprise, surprise, they now add it as an optional thing that you can put on to your system without having it forced onto you. Now, this is something that a bunch of other companies have started to implement. Things like Light Tech and other like custom build your own kind of things have started implementing a scenario where you can opt out of having a installed OS to kind of save some money. Now, I'm not 100% sure on these details with really what happens, because there's kind of two scenarios that can play out with this option. So either they don't install in any operating system whatsoever, so literally when you turn on your computer, it's just going to go to the BIOS menu instead of actually booting up into any sort of program. Or they could just have a installed version of Windows 10 Home without an activated licensing key. Now, both of these issues are fairly easy to solve, but if it is already installed with an unactivated version, it's a lot easier for the just user in general, and something that I would really recommend to most people who are considering buying one of their gaming PCs. So if any of you guys saw my last video, which was a tier list of the gaming PC companies that you guys can buy from here in the United States, I basically was just putting them at different levels in the tier list and kind of telling you guys what I thought about them and how I kind of ranked them. Now, within that video, I did have a small segment where I did say that, you know, I went back and said that Redux is actually an S tier compared to where I initially put them as a B tier. Now, this happened because after I finished recording that entire video, I saw a comment in my my YouTube comment section that I was looking through YouTube Studio, and I saw someone say that you can actually take off the Windows 10 licensing now with, you know, having that price reduction. And that was literally like my biggest gripe that I had with these guys, is that they were overcharging for Windows 10, and they literally allowed you to have the option to take it off. I want to compare this company against my other S tier company that I put on that list, which is VRLA Tech. Now, the reason why I put VRLA Tech on there is just because of their outstanding price to performance against the competition. Until Build Redux came along, there was nobody else that even rivaled them in terms of price to performance. And to kind of compare these two things against each other today, I kind of have around the same configuration. Against, there are going to be different options and stuff that you can have. So with this one's going to be coming around to around $1,200, and this one's going to be coming close to, I don't know, $1,250. So that's basically what you're going to be paying for these systems. Now, what's the difference? They have a better power supply in a better case. I did add in fans on this one, so you are going to have those RGB effects, and they're going to have pretty decent performance compared to just no fans added. But the only difference really between these two other ones is also the motherboard. So this is an A520. It's a fairly low-end motherboard compared to this B450 one that they have on here. So this is a Pro. So you're going to have 4 DRAM channels compared to just the 2 that are on this board. So in terms of just upgrading your RAM in the future, this one's really not going to have that ability to do that if you have a PC like this with this particular motherboard. So I think, like, blow for blow, they're pretty much on like the same playing field. Like, this one has certain things that are better. Actually, I forgot to mention that this one has a liquid cool CPU where this one doesn't. So this one actually might be a little bit better value than what this system is, just because you have an AIO system with it. If we select the remove OS option, it goes down to $1,130, which is a lot better value than what this system is giving you. So that's basically the main reason why I put them as an S tier. Now, Build Redux is basically the #1 when it comes to overall value on their systems. You're getting pretty decent, high quality components along with some really good support. But what are the caveats, right? Because even though that they offer some arguably better value than VRLA tech, there has to be some caveats with this system. And I kind of do want to talk about that a little bit. So the first thing is when you go into the customize feature, so when we go into the customization tab, right, you get to choose between your graphics card, which actually has a pretty decent list of them. You get to choose your processor between Intel and AMD, how much memory you want, not the speeds, how much you can get, your storage configuration that you want, and then if you want Windows or not. In terms of customability, it's just not there, right? Like, if you want to choose a different graphics card, sure. If you want to choose a different processor, sure. You can't choose if you want an AIO or an air cooler. You can't really choose where you want to save that money at. In terms of memory, you don't really get to choose what kind of speeds your memory is going to be running at. Now, if you do pull up the spec page, they do change the speeds of the memory based off of the processors that you have. So if you're choosing an Intel processor, you're getting much lower clocked memory compared to a Ryzen system. And even then, I think that they could do better with the Ryzen system memory speeds. If you want the best performance out of your Ryzen CPU, you want to run 3600 megahertz. 3200 megahertz memory is definitely not going to be bad on your system whatsoever. It's going to have a tiny bit of less performance when it comes to the CPU, but in terms of just like, if you want to get the best out of your system, I would at least like the option to add in 3600 megahertz memory. And it's kind of the same thing with the case, right? You only get one case. They only have one version of their PC. So if you like the case aesthetic, that's great. But if you want anything smaller form factor, maybe you don't want a mesh front panel, maybe you don't like the front IO on the case, you don't get to choose. You get what you get when you are getting a system with Redux. And again, I do want to talk about this Windows situation. My recommendation vastly depends on if the system ships with a installed version of Windows that is unactivated, or if there is no operating system installed whatsoever. Now, what I honestly think it's going to be is that there's not going to be any operating system in whatsoever. And again, if that is the case, then it might not be as great value as it might seem when you just look at the dollar figures, because that feature is really only there for someone who actually has some experience with PCs and knows how to install operating systems. For someone who doesn't, this really isn't an option. Most people, when they're buying a gaming PC, they want to be able just to turn it on and have it work without having to do anything else. Whereas if you go with this route and there is no operating system installed whatsoever, you're going to have to get a USB stick, you're going to have to create the ISO file on that USB stick for Windows 10, you're going to have to install it, you're going to have to select the drive that you want to install on. It's not a hard process for someone who understands how to do it, but for someone who is just buying this gaming PC and has never done anything like that before, it's kind of a non-option. But on the other side, if they did just install Windows with a unactivated version, it's one of the best deals out there, because Windows will still run perfectly fine without an activation license. But if you want to customize it, if you want to have like your own wallpapers and stuff like that, then you will have to get an activated version of it. For people who just want to be able to buy the PC now and then maybe get a licensing later, which is not going to be nearly as much as what they are quoting it as here, I definitely think that that is a great option. All right, so this is going to be the last point that I'm going to be talking about in this video, and then we'll do a summary afterwards. But the last one is just price point, right? So I don't think it's necessarily going to be a downside for a lot of people, but for anybody who's looking to get into the entry space of gaming, Redux really isn't the best idea to go with. They basically find their value price point when you are hitting the $1,000 plus range. Underneath of that, it's really not that great. And the reason why I say this is that other companies use better parts and better combinations of parts to create value-oriented gaming PCs. Let's go back to our example of VRLA tech, right? So this system, the Rogue, is their $600 gaming PC, and in all honesty, it's going to perform very close to what this Redux PC is going to perform like. This thing has an RX 570, whereas this thing has a GTX 1650. An RX 570 usually performs better in most games than a GTX 1650. The processor is a little bit worse depending on which one you pick. You can choose an Intel or an AMD one. I would definitely go with the AMD one if you do choose on picking this gaming PC. Now, it is going to be worse than this Core i3, but I don't think it's going to be that detrimental to overall gaming performance, since the GPU is technically better than what's in here. Now, with this system, you have the same amount of RAM. You do have a slightly different storage configuration, and again, a worse power supply, but when you're looking at value, people really don't care. They just want the best performance for their dollar. So this is where I think really Redux kind of underperforms, is their lowest end price points. And again, this one doesn't come with an operating system. So if you were to include this, that would make the system more of an $870 system instead of this better price point. So that's kind of the end of the pros and cons. I still think that they are really good value now. And I honestly think that if you are looking to spend more than $1,000 on a gaming PC, I definitely think that Build Redux should warrant a visit from you. Now, we'll be linking their site down in the description as well. I will be posting on my last video that I did about them that it is outdated, so people are more directed to this one. And this little last part, I know is going to be kind of cringe for a lot of you guys who are watching, but if you are watching Build Redux, I would very much enjoy to have one of your PCs visit me, and I would definitely like to show how the installation process of maybe an operating system works, or how to get like a Windows 10 key and put it on to your system and all that other kind of stuff. And if anybody has any solid ideas of how this operating system thing works, if you either get the full installation of Windows 10 but you have to add a licensing key, or if you have no installation whatsoever, if you kind of know that information, please leave that down in the comment section below to help out some other buyers. As well, if you guys have any more questions, please go and join the channel Discord down below. And if you guys like the video, please hit that like button. If you guys want to see more, hit that subscribe button. So hopefully I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.